In the words of Winnie the Pooh, tut tut, it looks like rain. Well, with the rain pouring down outside, my phone now slowly drying out, today is a day for rest and reflection. And I've been thinking back over the last few days and just going over some of my thoughts. And yesterday, particularly as we wandered through Keswick and up to the summit of Skiddaw, and along the way, do you remember we found that monument? The monument to a father and son who were shepherds. And as we wandered up the mountain, I saw a number of sheep on the mountainside overlooking Keswick. Got some beautiful shots, in fact. But it got me thinking about a shepherd boy that we read about in the Bible. Yeah, I'm talking about King David. A boy who was the youngest of his family and actually the runt next to the rest of his brothers, who was strong and fit and handsome. You might look at any one of the other brothers and think, they would be so much a better king, but it tells us in the Bible that God doesn't look at the outward appearance, he looks at the heart. That's how he judges a person, by their heart. And he could see that David was a man after his own heart. I mean, David wasn't perfect by any stretch. You know, he's like the rest of us. He had major failings. But when he messed up, he often would go back to God in repentance. And that shows the heart of the man. So he was truly a great king, but there was a promise to him as well, a promise that one day someone would come and sit on his very throne. And when that king comes and sits on that throne, his reign would go on forever and ever and ever. Of course, he's talking about Jesus. But in this book, which I've committed to read over this sabbatical period, not the whole Bible, but 1 and 2 Kings, it starts with David on his deathbed. And he's talking to his son, Solomon, who will soon take the throne. The main thing that he says to his son before he departs, before he draws his final breath, is this: I'm going where everyone on earth must someday go. So take courage, my son, and be a man. Observe the requirements of the Lord your God and follow all his ways. Keep the decrees, commands, regulations, and laws written in the law of Moses, so that you will be successful in all you do and wherever you go. If you do this, then the Lord will keep the promise he made to me. He told me, if your descendants live as they should and follow me faithfully with all their heart and soul, one of them will always sit on the throne of Israel. Wow. Solomon can either take that advice or not. And as we go on in the story and we turn over to today's passage, actually, which is what I want to focus on, which is 1 Kings 3. I'm day 3 in my study. We see something amazing take place. Because how is Solomon going to do this? How is he going to rule and reign? It says that actually Solomon loved the Lord and followed all the decrees of his father David. But then the story goes on and he has a bit of a conversation with God. Because one night the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream and God said, what do you want? Ask and I will give it to you. Now we could look at that and we could think in this moment that God's a bit like a genie, but he's not. And we mustn't read it that way. But God does care about Solomon. And God does want to bless Solomon. But this question may come with a bit of an expectation in how Solomon might respond. I mean, just imagine that God appears to you and gives you this very question. What do you want? Ask. I'll give it to you. We might say money, we might say success, status, power. Any way the world thinks, that's going to be the response. And we might expect that Solomon would do the same, or make me a great king, make everybody respect me. But that's not how Solomon responds. In fact, this is how Solomon responds. Solomon replied, "You showed great and faithful love to your servant my father David, because he was honest and true and faithful to you. And you have continued to show his great and faithful love to him today by giving him a son to sit on this throne. Now, O Lord my God, you have made me king instead of my father. But I'm like a little child who doesn't know his way around. And here I am in the midst of your own chosen people, a nation so great and numerous they cannot be counted." You notice his response. Solomon feels completely unworthy of this position. Solomon feels a bit like an imposter. Solomon feels like he's in the shadow of his great father. How many of us have felt that way? How many of us have felt like inadequate? But then he gives his response. He gives his answer, his request to God's question of what he wants. This is what he says. "Give me an understanding heart so that I can govern your people well and know the difference between right and wrong. For who by himself is able to govern this great people of yours?" That was his response. Wisdom. Give me wisdom. Give me wisdom to know how to do this well. To do this well in your sight. To know what is right from wrong. I wonder if that's exactly what God wanted him to ask. To give me your heart. To give me your ways, Lord. True greatness is not found in our position or our status. You know, I've had to step away from my role as leader at this time and actually just focus on my relationship with God. What makes a man a man? What makes someone great is their desire to seek first God, to ask him to give wisdom for the everyday choices, to govern well that he's placed into our hands, first and foremostly to govern ourselves well, to govern our family well, and then to govern our job or our other responsibilities well. And we see the fullness of this request come into play in the second part of this chapter, because we hear of these two prostitutes before the king. Both of them have had a child recently, and both lie with the child on their beds. Now, today we would be discouraged from doing that. And probably for the same reasons that we read here in 1 Kings 3, because one of the women rolls over and crushes her child, killing it in their sleep. And then the other woman who has a child is fast asleep. And the one with the dead child goes and takes her dead child and replaces it with the live one. And then when she wakes up in the morning, the one who had the living child has now been replaced by the dead child, wakes up and goes, "This is not my child." And so both become before King Solomon. And here we see the wisdom of God applied. This is what it says. "Then the king said, 'Let's get the facts straight. Both of you claim the living child is yours, and each says that the dead one belongs to the other. All right, bring me a sword.' So a sword was brought to the king. Then he said, 'Cut the living child in two and give half to one woman and half to the other.'" What? In this moment, you might think, that's not wisdom. What are you talking about? Of course, he was never planning to do it. This was all about seeing the reaction from the women. Then the woman who was the real mother of the living child and who loved her child very much, cried out, "Oh no, my lord! Give her the child. Please do not kill him." But the other woman said, "All right, he will be neither yours nor mine. Divide him between us." Then the king said, "Do not kill the child, but give him to the woman who wants him to live. For she is his mother." And when all Israel heard the king's decision, the people were in awe of the king, for they saw the wisdom God had given him for rendering justice. And so as I draw my reflections to a close, I suppose the question I ask myself is this question that God asked Solomon: what do you want? Ask and I will give it to you. And I reflect and think, is my answer like Solomon's? Lord, give me wisdom. You know, this whole period that I'm in at the moment, this sabbatical, is to do just what I'm doing here, to reflect, to think about my own life, to think about what it means to be a godly man, a godly husband, and a godly servant of the Lord. And what's truly needed more than anything else to be successful in life is to have the wisdom that comes from God. The wisdom to know that He loves me like this mother of the child. He's like a good father who loves me, and I think I need to come back to that place. Back to that place of simplicity, of knowing His love for me and knowing that He calls me and invites me to come and ask Him. I confess there's many times that I don't do that. Sometimes I fall into my own understanding, into my own strength, into my own gifts, without realizing that actually they're all gifts from Him in the first place. And that He is the one who truly directs my steps. He is the one who imparts wisdom. He's the one that when I ask Him, if I will just stop and ask Him for those moments, for wisdom, to govern myself, govern my family, and govern the responsibilities You've placed into my hands, then I will be great. But I don't want to be great in the eyes of the world. I want to be great in the eyes of my Lord and my King, the one who invites me to ask Him. So I think that's what I'm going to spend some time doing a little bit more this week, is bringing those different things in my life before Him and asking Him to give me His perspective on it.